Hi, everybody. This is Erica from In the Company of Cards. I'm coming on a little bit later than I'd planned, so this will be a little shorter than I'd planned, but there is something that I thought would be worth looking at. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for thumbs upping. Thank you for hyping. And thank you so much for your comments. I really appreciate them. They mean the world to me. Uh, I was on Substack. Was that yesterday? I don't even know. Uh, where I did some free readings for an hour, and I did that for people who are paid subscribers to my work over there on Substack. Substack has nothing to do with YouTube. I sometimes have to explain that, but it's a great platform for really good writing. There's some wonderful writers over there. And they also happen to have this video component. So I write over there. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, once a week. I'm going to expand that to twice a week. So I will be writing on Substack Tuesdays and Thursdays. One of those days using cards to help me, one of those days probably not. And that'll be my writing. And I will probably also be doing free readings a couple of times a month. So if you want to go over there, it's you don't have to pay, but if you want to see the full effect of what I do, that is $5 a month. You can cancel anytime, or $50 a year. So it's a little bit of a break if you get the yearly. And I just pop over there and do lives. I think a couple of times a week is where I'm going to do them. I'm not going to be doing them here anymore. In case you haven't noticed, I got rid of my membership tiers here. They just weren't worthwhile to me. So, your best bet if you'd like a free reading would be to go over to Substack and look for me there. I'm called in the company of cards, or you could put Erica Robinson in there, and you'll find me. So, the news, of course, has been full of Venezuela. It will continue to be full of Venezuela. We know that what the felon did was illegal. We know that he will face some sort of consequences from the international community. And by that, I mean both politically and I think in other ways. I think he could be charged criminally. You don't just walk up into somebody's country and kidnap the leader and his wife and then say, we're in charge of the country. What are you talking about? Anyway, this will all have to play itself out. There are all kinds of repercussions around the world. Uh, One of the things I was wondering is why is Marco Rubio so like hot and heavy into this? Like he thinks it's a great idea. I think it's because Cuba and Venezuela have been close, and he wants us to do what we did in Venezuela to Cuba. Um, he's a Batista Cuban. You can look up what that means. Um, but I think it's all about Cuba for him. Anyway, we know that the felon's selling wolf tickets other places, Mexico, Colombia, wherever else. And that will unfold. But there's something else I wanted to look at. So when I was on Substack yesterday doing these free readings, somebody asked me to read on something that I didn't know anything about. And I mean, I read on it, but I want to read on it again here in light of having found out what very little I have been able to find out today about it. And what I'm talking about is the national walkout scheduled for January 20th at 2 p.m. Uh, I mean, there are very few details. I don't understand that because January 20th is around the corner. But I'm sure if you Google it, you'll be able to find a link that will help you. In fact, I'll even try to put it in the show notes if I can, a link for how to find out, more about it. But the idea is that wherever you are, meaning if you are at work or if you are at school or, otherwise engaged, that at 2 p.m. on January 20th, you walk out. Now, walk out and do what? They're basically saying, well, whatever, walk out and go home, walk out and pr- uh, you know, attend a rally because there will be rallies around this. Now, okay, I mean, they need to publicize this if it's a real thing. I mean, it is a real thing, but they need to publicize it if they want people to participate. But that's only tangential to what the real thing I want to look at is, which is J.D. Vance, who is better at the eyeliner than even I am, has said that the felon is looking seriously at um, invoking the Insurrection Act. Now, invoking the Insurrection Act is just a step away from declaring martial law. And why would he do that? Well, because he's because people are not happy with what he's doing. Let's just put it like that. In all kinds of areas. And he will want to tamp down protest. We know that the courts have said that he cannot have National Guard troops uh, roaming cities the way that he has done. Uh, but he is, I know he's doing a big move to bolster the forces of ICE, by saying things like, oh, we'll forgive your student loans, we'll give you $50,000 bonuses, you can carry a club and wear a badge, whatever. They are looking to bulk those forces up considerably. This would be obviously his own personal SS, for lack of a better word. I guess they are the ones who would what um, enforce the Insurrection Act. But the Insurrection Act would allow him to send troops, uh, not just National Guards people, but, you know, um, troops in to quell disturbances and to keep people in line. And again, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from that to martial law. I talk a lot on this channel and in my writing about revolution, and I will remind you that I am actually not speaking metaphorically. When I say things like, well, when we storm Versailles, you'll be surprised at who's to the right and to the left of you. It'll be a MAGA person on the one side. It'll be a corporate head on the other. MAGA will be mad because of the Epstein files. The corporate head will be mad because of tariffs, but you'll all be marching and towards the same thing for the same end. That's going to happen. I mean, I think there will be um, unrest in the streets, let's say. And it's important to be prepared for that. I, I do think it's coming. I think there are, I think that as of this moment, there are not enough people feeling sufficient discomfort for it to be tomorrow or next week. But if the January 20th national walkout um, gains steam, that could be the day. So let's first look at this national walkout. I'm going to use the garden for that because the garden for me stands for, the public. And so I am imbuing the garden card with the energy of the national walkout, again, scheduled for January 20th, 2 p.m. So how will that go? Will people say, oh, that's not convenient? I have an appointment. I have a meeting. Um, you know, now notice they're saying that they want people to walk out of workplaces and also schools. As somebody who taught, I mean, occasionally we would have walkouts. Where the kids would walk out or adults would walk out, and there were consequences, and the consequences were sometimes pretty severe. So if this sounds good to you, are you willing to pay that cost? My mother told us when we were little kids, and I've told this story before, I think, on here, where my father was civil rights activist, worked with Dr. King. And one day we were small, and my father had gone to Albany, Georgia to work with Dr. King. And we saw on television my father and other people who were, doing nonviolent resistance being beaten, hosed, bitten by dogs. And I mean, we were horrified. And then my father got arrested. And my brothers, who are younger than me, and they were, they probably, I don't know, at that point, maybe they wanted to grow up and be policemen or firemen or, whatever little boys want to be. And they were horrified that our father had gotten arrested. And my mother said, you know, sometimes good people break bad laws because sometimes there are bad laws, and it is the duty of good people to protest bad laws. And that's what your father's doing. So it is a badge of honor. You should be proud of him that he is being arrested because he's standing up for what's right. Um, so I'm just trying to give everybody a heads up so that you can make your decision as to what you want to do. Do you want to stay home sick that day? It's an option. Do you want to keep your kids home that day? That's an option. Or are you gonna walk out? Are you good with that? I mean, I'd walk out myself, but that's just me. That's just me. And I don't have a workplace except YouTube right now, so and Substack. So, I it's easy for me to say. But this moment calls for everyone to do some self-examination. How horrified are you about what's going on? How sick are you of all of this? I know you maybe pulled the lever for the right candidate, but that's insufficient to our needs in this moment. So I'm just so you can talk amongst yourselves and make a plan and decide what your response is going to be. It's the same thing as, boycotting Target. Um, are you boycotting Target or are you going to Target because Target's the only place that you can find XYZ brand of XYZ? No shade, it's your choice. But I'm telling you that we are living in revolutionary times. We are living in times that history books will write about the way they wrote about the revolution, the Civil War, um, Vietnam, the civil rights era. It is that pivotal a moment. And it's important that you think for posterity about what side you want to be on. You know, it is unnecessary to come in my comments and say, well, I'm old, I can't. Well, then, okay, don't send your prayers, you know, do whatever you can do. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I'm saying that in this moment, we are presented with an opportunity to communicate our dissatisfaction to each other and to the powers that make the rules. Uh, I talked about the healthcare issue, the fact that people have lost their health care. There were two different proposals put forward by Democrats to do a stopgap bill, but the Republicans refused. Interesting. So maybe they did not get the message from their constituents. Maybe their constituents had something better to do on a Thursday night than go give a piece of their mind to their congressperson, and so missed that opportunity. I'm telling you, revolution is coming, uh, and maybe martial law is coming. But first, let's look at what January 20th will bring. So we're going to use the garden, and I just want to know whether people will get on board with this thing or whether it will fizzle out like a firecracker in the rain and come to nothing. Will people be too terrified by whatever stormtroopers the felon threatens to put in the street? And remember, this all comes back to Epstein. All of this distraction comes back to Epstein. Okay. So we're looking for the garden that will stand for this January 20th protest that will happen at 2 p.m., where everybody's meant to walk out of their place of employment or their school or whatever. So that's this. I always say to you that when you read cards, what you get is like a snapshot in the moment. And if you like the trajectory you see, that's great. If you don't, change it. I commented before I even pulled cards on the fact that the first I heard of this was when somebody on Substack asked me to read on it yesterday. I mean, we're already January 5th. Clouds, child, garden, whip, and fox. I think that right now, a lot of people haven't heard a thing about it. They don't know. This is all brand new to some of you listening to this broadcast, like it was new to me last night. I had no idea. Okay, we have the garden in the middle, and then we have the whip. Now I can mirror the whip with the child. Um, I think that people will be worried. I can't do that. I won't get my promotion. I'll get fired. I'll get suspended. I'll get a bad recommendation, bad college recommendation, whatever the reason. But there's always reasons to not do something, and I think people will try to come up with those. Now, the fox. Sometimes I like the fox. Sometimes I don't. Here it mirrors the clouds. And I want to say that one of the reasons that we've not heard about this is that mainstream media is not covering it. I plan to watch Rachel Maddow tonight in an hour, 40 minutes, and see if she brings it up because she's always talking about protests that are going on. But we have not heard. I watch the news, as you know, religiously, all different outlets. And I had to hear about this thing from a viewer asking me to read on it on Substack. So it seems like there is collusion going on to keep people from learning that this is the next big thing, like the No Kings protests and all that. This next big thing is January 20th, the national walkout. For some reason, well, not for some reason, for all the reasons in the world, the powers that be do not want you to know about this. And when I say powers that be, part of what I'm talking about, of course, is the legacy media, the mainstream media. Let me see, I'm going to pull some clarifiers. see if I can come up with a narrative about all of this. So I told you we've got clouds, child, garden in the middle that stands for the January 20th walkout, the whip, and then the fox. So I drew clarifiers on all of them. So when I was going horizontally and I was telling you about the clouds are, they obscure things, right? Like what for some of you, this will be the first you've heard of it. I'm assuming. I only heard about it yesterday. Why is it so shrouded in silence and mystery? What's that all about? Clarifiers are the scythe, the house, and the tower. I think that I might not have known about it yesterday, and you may only be learning about it today, but the White House knows about it. I did find a reference to it from December 2nd, some obscure reference when I did a Google search, but that was about it. Anyway, they know about it, and they are assuming that there will be unrest. And so this is the White House, this is government, this is the power of the White House, the power of government, and they will want to uh, lay down the law. You can't stop the country cold at 2 p.m. on January 20th by walking out. Well, you and what army is going to stop people? And he'll say, me and the army will stop you. That's what he'll say. He being, the felon. Second card in our original line was the child. Clarifiers are the young woman, the letter, and the moon. Again, it sounds like I'm changing the subject, but I'm not. The Brady Bunch, it was Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. I guess the felon watched the Brady Bunch back in the day because he says, Russia, 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 Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Yeah, Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. All day, all the time. Um, there are new revelations that have come out just in recent days. Remember, there's millions of well, I don't need to tell you what the revelations are. We have Jack Smith's testimony about January 6th, but this really is about Epstein, the Epstein files, and um, and his reputation and the reputation of the DOJ and all of this. The natives are restless. The natives would be the people, us, and that's got him very worried. In the center, this, remember, stands for the January 20th walkout. We have the dog, we have crossroads, and we have the bear. So lawyers are advising the felon about what options he has um, in terms of how to use his strongman authority to quell any kind of protest. So he's on top of it. We may not be on top of it. Like I said, this may be the first you're hearing of it, but they're on top of it. We have the whip clarified by the sun, the ring, and the birds. I think that in coming days, we will hear more and more because this is like um, advertising, publicity, more and more through the underground news, which I guess I'm part of, right? About this initiative, this movement. Um, I think a lot of people will like the idea of it. I think people will start to get organized and mobilized. I like this card here, and will be committed. So in coming days, as you're hearing about it from me, as you're hearing about it on other channels, the momentum for this is going to grow and grow and grow. Again, which would make talk of the Insurrection Act in this moment make all the sense in the world if you're looking at it like the felon looks at it. So here we have the fox, and the clarifiers are the anchor, the ship, and the woman. Hmm. Not sure that I love the woman card at the end. Feels kind of Bondy-like, the DOJ. Not sure also that I like the anchor together with the ship. Ships and anchors do go together, but um, if you're wanting to go someplace, effect some kind of change, you want to be sailing on the ship, but you can't if you're being hobbled, if you're being anchored, if you're being prevented by um, a government that doesn't want you to do that. So uh, I think publicity about this walkout will grow. I think the government is already planning on their response. Um, and I think it's just very interesting that Vance brought up the Insurrection Act all of a sudden. So I'm going to just shuffle the cards that I just got back in, and I'm going to look at the Insurrection Act. You know, I'm not saying what I'm saying or showing you what I'm showing you to scare you, but I mean, there's a monster in the room. Pretty sure pulling the blanket over your head will have zero effect on the monster's conduct, right? I mean, the felon says America will be woke no more. Now is the time to be woke, awake, and aware, and to make plans for how you are going to either participate in this revolution, be someone who documents the revolution, aids and abets the revolution, or sits it out, which was, of course, aiding and abetting the other side. Um, Everybody's got to make a decision, and no decision is a decision. So I'm just trying to give you a heads up. Um, we are ripe for revolution. It does not look like there is any plan in place to do anything about these healthcare costs. We now know that Bobby Jr. Has decreased the number of inoculations for children from 17 on the schedule to 11. He bases that on what they do in Denmark. And even Denmark says, what in the world are you talking about? We are not the United States. The United States is not us. These guidelines are created for particular populations. And what we do is not relevant to how you decide what you do, or it shouldn't be. But I guess they think Denmark is one of those shiny white countries. So let's do what the shiny white country does. But even Denmark's saying, this is stupid. At what point are you going to say, I've had enough? And what does that look like beyond the words out of your mouth? What plans are you making? Um, let's look at this Insurrection Act. I'll use the letter because that would be something that he would have to sign. He looks terrible, by the way, the felon. I don't know if you've noticed. Terrible. Uh, Okay, so we're going to use the letter that will stand for the Insurrection Act, and I'd like to know whether in the next, in January or February, let's stretch it out a little bit, will the Insurrection Act be invoked this month or next month? Will it be invoked anytime in the next, let's say, 60 days? What will happen with the Insurrection Act? Remember, we're looking for the letter that stands for the act that would have to be signed. Okay, so that stands for the Insurrection Act. Okay, so the original five for this question are stork, snake, the Insurrection Act, the key, and the moon. I mean, can you imagine what it's going to look like for the President of the United States to feel the need to call out troops against the people? It's not a good look internationally. I'm just saying. I mean, it's a strong man move. It's something Putin would do or she would do, but it's not a good look. So you have the stork, which is positive change. So maybe he's thinking, oh, if I sign the Insurrection Act, things will be better. People will calm down and, this whole thing will die down. But we have the snake. Now, it could be, you know, in order to address these problems, I'm going to do the Insurrection Act and things will get better. Insurrection Act's in the middle. We have the key and we have the moon. One of the things I think this would do, if he were to call it, would be to make it very clear to those who are still sleeping who we've got at the helm. What a bad, evil guy we've got at the helm. Entertainment purposes only. It would be very clear there would be no missing who he is. Okay. So I go back to this stork. Clarifiers are the tower, the ring, and the lily. So, if he threatened to call it or if he did call it, what he's thinking is, I'm going to make things better for me, meaning the felon, by using the power of government to rein everybody in and make everybody peaceful through violent means, by the way, because my troops will be out there shooting people and arresting people. Second card was the snake. Clarifiers are the coffin, the woman, and the heart. Look, I mean, this is not good for him. This is him. Uh, his health is only going to get worse. The Epstein thing is continuing to prey on him, and it's affecting his heart. I can mirror the snake with the heart trouble. Uh, I can also mirror the coffin with the woman. I think I said that this the last time that I was on here on this platform that um, the role of women in this revolution is huge, and some of the women are the Epstein victims, the women who walk off their jobs on the 20th. I mean, we are the ones who will be affecting this Pluto and Aquarius type change. All right, here's the Insurrection Act. We have the tree, the house, and the garden. You know, a lot of times in traditional reading, the closer, if you're looking at a grand tableau with all the cards, one of the cards would be the man or the woman, which would stand for the person doing the reading or the person being read for. And the wisdom has it that the closer the tree is to that person, the worse their health is. So I think that if he were to call the Insurrection Act, it would it would really adversely affect him, but not just him, his reputation in the future and his presidencies as the White House. Um, would not be a smart move. Now, here we have the key as our fourth main card, clarifiers, the cross, clover, mice. I think if he did something like declared the Insurrection Act and then martial law would follow, he will have lit the match for the revolution. You know, we are a very young country. Yes, we went through a civil war. Yes, we went through a revolution, but we haven't seen centuries and centuries and centuries of this kind of, you know, infighting, but we're about to. These cards are not good. I think that if he were to call it, people would be in the streets quick, fast, and in a hurry. And would he back down? No. But would we back down? No. Mice and cross are cards for real pain and sacrifice, and that may be what's called for. I mean, I don't like to say that any more than you like to hear it, but I think that's what we're facing. Fifth card in our original line is the moon. Clarifiers are the rider, the child, and then the scales. Here's what I think. You know, his reputation, of course, will be mud. He will be diminished in the eyes of the public and the world. More to the point, the eyes of the public in the United States, including those people who've been ride or die for him all this time, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, no, pass. And we will want some sort of balance. What's interesting is that I can mirror this very good card, last card, with the very first card, which, if you recall, was also very good. I think that if he were to do it, I think that it would break the fever that we're in, that we're experiencing. Because I mean, we would all recognize, wait a minute, there's a crazy person at the helm, and there are crazy people in the government. And are we good with that? No. I mean, this is the card for balance, balancing what's wrong. And there's so many things that need to be balanced in this country. Stork is about improvement. I love that. So I'm not trying to tie this up with a bow for you because I don't think it's pretty at all. I think it's really ugly. I think we have been ill served by this administration. And I think that's putting it mildly. I think the world has been badly served by this president and this administration. And I think that we are getting closer to a reckoning. And the problem is, of course, that it's not just a reckoning for him and his people, it's a reckoning for all of us. Um, for all of us who live in a country that claims to be one thing when it's another. A country that loves to say, that's not who we are. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We are being faced with some decisions about whether, again, whether we're good with who we are or whether we want to do better. And there will be a lot of pain and sacrifice before we get to this part. So that's just, a forewarned is forearmed heads up about what's coming. Look up January 20th. Uh, Hopefully, I think we will start to hear more about it. Hopefully, Rachel will bring it up tonight. I don't know. Uh, but he is definitely thinking about invoking the Insurrection Act. Generally, you don't do that in the absence of any big thing going on. So he's anticipating um, unrest in the streets. I think that's accurate. I think there will be. So decide who you want to be in this moment and how that will, um, how you'll demonstrate that. Whew. All right. Tomorrow, I will be over on Substack writing the first of my two pieces this week. Not sure what I'm going to write about, but I guess we'll find out. I invite you to come over there, and it's great space as well. I love YouTube, but if you like great writing, um, YouTube's not where great writing happens, but Substack is. So I invite you over there. Thank you so much. Happy rest of your Monday. And your homework, if you choose to accept the assignment, is to research what you can find out about January 20th. Uh, Please feel free to leave me a comment if there's information that you find out that you think it would be helpful for me to share with our viewers. And make sure you're still subscribed to the channel because sometimes people get dumped. I notice every so often they'll do a dump, probably of bots or whoever, but sometimes they dump people who don't intend to have been dumped. So just make sure that you're still subscribed. And I really thank you for your loyalty to the channel. And I will see you again in a day or so. Take care.